So I've been building AI automations for almost 2 years now. I think my first AI automation tutorial on this channel was building an AI automation to translate documents from, I believe, English to French or like to different languages. And so as someone who has lived in N8N for a long time and also diversifying into using Microsoft Copilot Studio and other AI automation platforms, I've noticed a number of things that happen, especially when you're starting out. And for me, there are some of the things that really surprised me. I noticed that when you're starting out, you don't really struggle with tools. So the platform isn't the problem. The struggle is how we sort of approach learning AI automation. So if I was starting all over again today, here are the things I would avoid because they are the same traps that you end up wasting months on. And these traps can make you feel like you're not technical enough. And for context, I have been a software developer in my past life. I'm currently a product manager, so I just want to say you don't need to be overly technical. The first thing is you trying to automate your whole life, right? You're trying to automate everything at once because once you start automating stuff, you get so excited. And this happens when you finally get your first workflow working. And you're like, wait, I can actually automate anything I want. And so you go on and you build like a monster workflow. There are multiple triggers here and there are branches everywhere, and then you have AI in the middle of like 25 nodes deep, and it looks impressive. And if you probably posted it on YouTube or social media, it would go viral. But the issue is that big workflows don't usually break in obvious ways. They fail in tiny, annoying, hard to trace ways, right? So if I was starting all over again, I wouldn't really go after the big flashy AI automations. I'll go after simple ones. I'll just start probably with just one trigger, one clear outcome, and then I'll build depth before I build like breadth. And I have a tutorial for beginners. I'll link it in this video as well. Because a small workflow that runs like 500 times will teach you more than a big workflow that you're actually scared to touch. And the thing with the big workflows is that if something breaks here, it would affect everything, and it's just so hard to debug as well. Now, the other thing is the fact that I used to think AI automation was like, let's say, a step-by-step process, like step 1, step 2, step 3. No, it's not. You shouldn't really be treating AI automations like scripts. Most people build automations like it's a checklist, right? Step 1 runs, then step 2 runs, then step 3 runs, and then I'm done. But AI automation in itself isn't just like a script, right? Automation is event-driven. And when something is event-driven, weird things happen. So you can get the same event twice. Your workflow can retry automatically. Something can partially succeed and sometimes something will fail. And events can even show up late. So if you build like everything is clean and it's linear, your AI workflow would only work in a perfect world. And in production, it's not always a perfect world. Things can break in production, right? So you have to ensure that you are not treating your AI automation as if it's like a step-by-step process. The other thing I want to also highlight is that the first time your API times out, that's the time you learn, right? So don't skip error handling. I get why people skip error handling, right? Because error handling feels boring sometimes and you just want it to work. You want the happy path. But most AI automations, they don't run like that. Most AI automations don't fail because your logic is wrong. They fail because something external broke. And if something is external, you don't have control over it. So for instance, the API timed out, rate limits kicked in, the service had a moment, the payload wasn't what you expected. So the question really isn't, will this fail? The real question is, what happens when it fails at 2 a.m. when you are not watching? And this has happened to me a lot of times. There are certain endpoints that I was expecting to run, but they didn't run. And it's good I had like a retry logic on there. So if I was starting all over again, error handling would be part of the build, not an afterthought. For sure. This is something that I'll definitely make sure that error handling is always part of the build. Now, the other thing is like I trusted payloads way too much when I started. So I was always expecting that if I hit this API, this is the exact data I'm going to get, right? When you're new, you think, okay, cool, the webhook will send this exact fill. So it always send this exact fill. No, it doesn't always work like that because the external companies you're dependent on, they may push changes, right? So APIs will change, users will type nonsense, webhooks will send different shapes depending on context. And I've had a lot of workflows break because a field was missing for one edge case, or a string suddenly became an array, or the data was there today and then gone yesterday. So if I was starting all over again, I'll make sure that I validate and I sanitize everything. And I do have a tutorial which might come out before this video on how you can do this. Not because I'm paranoid, right? But because AI automation inputs are guilty until they've been like proven innocent. Now, the other thing I would also do differently is that I've come to realize that AI can make a bad workflow look like it's working. So don't overuse AI in your workflows, okay? AI is powerful, obviously, but here's a trap. AI can mask weak logic. It's like if your workflow is messy, AI will sometimes still give you something that looks right, but then in reality, that's not supposed to be right. And you think that, nice, this AI automation works, this AI workflow works, but what you really built was actually a system that is just guessing. And you're thinking that, oh, I'll build this perfect workflow and it should work. So if I was starting all over again, I'll learn deterministic logic first, meaning that I would have AI in there for sure, but then I'll also have like clear conditions, clear rules, clear guardrails, predictable outputs. And then I would add in AI only where it truly adds value, not where it's acting like glue holding a shaky workflow together, just so I can call it an AI automation. Now, the other thing I want to touch on is the fact that multi-agents swarms are cool until you have to debug them, right? So make sure you're not building multi-agent swarms too early, because right now multi-agent setups are everywhere. They are the next big thing. They look like amazing diagrams, they sound advanced in demos, and again, these type of videos would probably go viral. But in real life, they add a lot of latency issues, they add a lot of complexities, more failure points, and then they burn through your credits faster than people expect. Most real problems, they don't really need a swamp. They need just one well-defined AI automation or one well-defined agent with a clear job and boundaries. So if I were starting all over again, I'll just assume one agent is enough. I'll only add some agents if I had a very specific reason to do so. Because at the end of the day, complexity doesn't just cost you money, it costs you time, it costs you your own sanity, because the time it takes you to debug these multi-agent workflows, sometimes it's just not worth it, okay? Also, if you can't see what's happening, you don't really own the workflow. So one thing I'd say is that when you're starting out, don't ignore observability, right? So this is the difference between like someone who's actually building AI automations and someone who has to now maintain the AI automations they build. Because building AI automations is fun, right? But maintaining it is where the pain really is. So if your AI workflow fails and you can't really answer where it's failed, why it's failed, what data caused it, what happened next, then you're not actually in control. You are just guessing. And if I were starting all over again, I'll make basic observability non-negotiable, okay? Because I'm going to name the nodes clearly. I'm going to log key steps. I'm going to store important states. I'm going to track retries, duplicates, because debugging shouldn't necessarily feel like archaeology, okay? It should feel easy to do. The other thing is I used to optimize too early and I realized that it was a waste of time, because the truth is that when you're starting out, the first thing you're thinking about is performance. You're thinking about architecture. You're thinking about cost. Like, what's the best way to structure this long term? And I get it. It feels professional. I mean, that's probably one of the best ways to do so. And if you were building software, you think about that too. But then if your workflow isn't even reliable yet, you shouldn't start thinking about optimizing it. At that point, optimization is just decorating something that is unstable. If it fails 20% of the time, I don't care how fast or how cheap it is, okay? So if I was starting out all over again, my only metric earlier on would be, does it work every time? Because at the end of the day, if you're building AI automations, you want to make sure that your AI automations, maybe inside NA10, work all the time. If it's working all the time, then at that point in time, we can think of making it fast, we can think of making it cheap as well. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the fact that the most useful AI automation skill isn't AI, it's predictability. Here's a big takeaway I want you to take after me doing this for 2 years, okay? Good automation is boring, it's predictable, it's stable, it's easy to reason out, right? The flashy ones you see online that go viral, they are great for demos, okay? They are great to capture attention. But the boring stuff, the ones that are not flashy, is what really survives in real life. And once you learn how to build boring, predictable systems, you can build anything. And at that point in time, if you want to make it complex or anything, then you can decide to do so. So I have a quick question for you. I'm really curious, right? What's something you built earlier on that you would never build the same way again? just drop it in the comment section below, because honestly, those answers help other people just as much as the video does as well. And if you're learning AI automation right now, let me know what you're learning, what platform you're building this on. You can also join my free school community as well. There are a lot of people building AI automations on there as well. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share this video if you found it helpful as well, and like it as well. But yeah, as usual, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.